Hi, my name is Lexi. I have not posted a YouTube video in so long, but recently my niece Haley told me that I should start posting again. So hi Haley, if you're watching this. Oh my god, someone is pulling up right next to me. I'm currently at the library, about to return a couple books that I just read, but I thought I would do a book review on them first, and I just wanted to film a little part of it while I had the actual books to hold up and show. I'm gonna wait till this person gets out of their car. Okay, they just got out of their car. I do not know how influencers and like really popular YouTubers film in public. I really don't. But anyway, the books that I wanted to review are Writers and Lovers by Lily King and Heart the Lover. I ended up reading these together. It actually worked out perfectly. I had no idea that these books were related. I had heard people raving about Heart the Lover recently. I just put it on hold at my library because I thought it would be a good book to read. And then I also put this book on hold because this was my book club pick. So I put this on hold. This one came available first and I started to read it. And I sat down and read about 50 pages and then I went to log it on my Goodreads. And I noticed in like the Goodreads description that it said number 2 in like the KCP body series. So I looked it up and I was like, oh no way, Writers and Lovers is like the first one. And funnily enough, they came available up about the same time. This came available like a couple days after I started this one. I looked up the like the order of like the events in the books. And this book acts as a sequel and a prequel. So I read the first part of this book, and then I read the entirety of Writers and Lovers, and then I went back and finished this one. I'll just sum up a few of my thoughts. I still need to write my review for Heart the Lover. I think I'm gonna rate Heart the Lover 4.25. I gave Writers and Lovers, I think 3.75 stars. So it's mostly just like a character-driven book. I don't know, I thought this one didn't have that much of a plot. It definitely picked up in like the last quarter, but a lot of it is very slow. So I think that's why I rated this one a little lower. I do really wish that I read it in publishing order and just read all of Writers and Lovers and then read Heart the Lover all in one go, because taking a break in the middle of this, although I was following the same character, it just kind of broke up the book a little bit weird. Okay, I think I'm about to take these back into the library to return them, but I might talk a little bit more about each book in detail and kind of my thoughts when I get home. I am back home now. I changed into comfy clothes and I wanted to keep talking about the books that I showed you earlier. If I'm gonna say any like major spoilers, I'll let you know, but I'm kind of just gonna be talking about like the general plots of the books. I don't know, I feel like the back of Writers and Lovers didn't really give a good description of the book. So this might have like minor spoilers, but nothing major. Writers and Lovers follows Casey. I believe she's post-grad and she just moved back home. She's grieving her mother and it just follows her life from that point. She's working on her book, she's not published, and you just follow her. And you also follow the different relationships that she has. And to be honest, I did not find any of her love interests super interesting. Usually if I don't like the main character or the narrator, I don't like the book. But this one, I didn't love her, but I didn't hate the book. Like I was invested enough to want to finish to see how things would work out for her. But there are definitely things that she said or things that she did that frustrated me a little bit or that I just personally didn't really get. But it made the character and it made the relationships feel really real. I put this in my review, but it kind of felt like Casey was a friend of a friend and I was just hearing about her life, which I kind of liked because like I said, I was really interested to see what was going to be like happening with her and how things would turn out for her. So that's kind of what got me through Writers and Lovers. It wasn't necessarily like a page turner, but I did like it, and I think there are some really good quotes about relationships in general and grief. I also found it a little bit more interesting that this book took place in like the late 90s, just because I personally don't like when books that take place in the present day mention a lot of social media or anything trending. And it was really interesting to read about romantic relationships and how people pursued people before everyone had a cell phone, before everyone had social media. You know, I'm 26, so I didn't grow up with the luxury of not having a cell phone. If you can say luxury, it's nice to have phones, but it's also nice to look back and just see how people acted and how people formed relationships when everyone wasn't accessible 24/7. So I really liked that. I liked the time period. Overall, Writers and Lovers was a good book. I can see why people really loved it, and I can also see why people didn't like it. So I was kind of in the middle. I did like it though. For Heart the Lover, I think I just liked the characters and the plot was a little bit more interesting in that one. Heart the Lover follows Casey. She goes by Jordan. That's how I was introduced to her because I started with Heart the Lover. So her college friends give her the nickname Jordan from The Great Gatsby. It follows Jordan and two people that she meets in her classes, two guys who are already friends, and they kind of form their own little friend group, and then she just kind of has like a love triangle going on with both of them. So it follows them throughout their college years, and then it fast forwards, and the second part of the book, or like the second and third part of the book, take place after the events of Writers and Lovers. Although I do wish that I read Heart the Lover all in one go, I'm glad that I didn't do that because it would have spoiled how Writers and Lovers ended, which wouldn't be like the biggest deal in the world, but it definitely, you know, you see where she ends up. So I really enjoyed kind of getting to see the parallels between her college years and then when she's, I think they're in like their late 40s towards the end of the book. I also really like books that follow characters over like decades or like over years. Another one that I like that's like that is Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. I think that's the title. I just think it's very interesting, and I like to see characters change over time and see how relationships either persist or don't, and just seeing how people come back together and the nostalgia for the characters. I love that in a book. So I did really like Heart the Lover, and I think that's another reason I liked that one more. I will say, and these will be kind of more major spoilers for Heart the Lover, so if you haven't read it and you want to, you can go ahead and skip ahead. So the like second half of Heart the Lover honestly takes a really sad turn. You find out that the main character Casey, you find out that her son has cancer, and you also find out that one of the other main characters, Yash, who she was with in college, he also has cancer. And so the second half of the book honestly kind of came out of nowhere. I don't ever really look up trigger warnings for books just because I don't want to be spoiled, and I can usually read sensitive topics and not really be thrown off that much. But this one did just kind of like take me by surprise because it was just such a 180 from the beginning of the book. It is also revealed halfway through the book that Casey gets pregnant unexpectedly, and then it's told later on that she does have the baby and she gives it up for adoption. And reading about that dynamic and reading about it from her perspective as a mother who gave up a child was really interesting for me. I'm adopted, and so I liked being able to get to see things from her point of view and read about how she kind of handled that and dealt with it. It's honestly not a really big part of the book. The author doesn't go over that part that much, but it's one of the other main characters, Yash's child, and she doesn't tell him until he is on his deathbed. And I was crying during that scene when she told him for like multiple reasons. I was thinking about myself, I was thinking about my situation, and then I was also putting myself in her shoes and thinking about this situation, and then I was thinking about Yash. And one thing that I just love about reading is you really get to empathize with so many different kinds of people and read about experiences that do happen in real life, but maybe you're just not exposed to them personally. And I'm not saying that like reading a book about it is the same thing as living it, but I do like that aspect of getting to know different kinds of people that way. So yeah, Casey's out visiting Yash in the hospital. She basically flies out to say goodbye, and Sam's also there, and you just kind of get to see these characters who are now older kind of be taken back into the past. And I thought that was a really interesting aspect. Like I said, I like to see characters over time. Major spoilers if you are somehow still here and have not read Heart the Lover. Yash does die in the end, and I got so emotional at the end because I felt such a connection to these characters because they just felt so real to me. which again is crazy because I didn't really necessarily like any of these characters that much. I mean, I did like them, but they just felt very real. So yeah, I did cry at the ending, but I think that's a sign of a great book. If you care so much about these characters that you were introduced to, that you feel a lot of emotion in their endings, even if it is sad. One thing I do wish is that I wish that we got to know what happened with her son. It's kind of just open-ended. At the end of the book, she flies out because he's having a surgery, and we just don't know how it goes. But I'd like to think that it all turned out okay for him. Okay, also, side note, one reason that I think that maybe this wasn't a 5-star for me was just because, like, the whole time through Heart the Lover, I was just thinking of Silas, because the book focuses on her relationship with Yash, even though they are not the ones who built a life together. She married Silas. And I do kind of wish he was in it a little bit more, and that maybe, not that we got his perspective because both of the books are only from Casey's point of view, but just that we maybe got a little bit more about Silas and Casey, because we also didn't really get that much about Silas and Casey in Writers and Lovers. She spent most of that book with her other partner at the time. So I feel like we just don't know Silas that well, and I would have liked to get to know him more. But still, overall, I really liked Heart the Lover. Like I said, I think I'm gonna give it a 4.25. If you also read either of these books and you want to talk about it, please comment. I love to talk about books and I love to talk about characters. I think it's so interesting to see everyone's different opinion on the same book. So before I end the video, I did want to show off the books that I am planning to read next. I just got one of these from the library today and I'm really excited about it. It's The Road to Tender Hearts. I've seen a few different people on YouTube recommend this book. I think it's just literary fiction. I'm excited to read this one. I have had this library book checked out for almost 2 weeks now and I haven't even touched it yet. It's called Episode 13. It's a horror novel. I think it's about like paranormal investigators. Honestly, I don't really know. I saw the Backrooms movie and then I kept getting like TikToks and Instagram reels saying, if you like the Backrooms, like here's books with similar vibes. I guess I should have started out saying this, but the genres I usually stick to are either literary fiction, thrillers, horror, or romance. I don't really like fantasy. I don't know why, I never have. So this is definitely up my alley. I love spooky things. Halloween is my favorite holiday. So I'm excited to start this one. There's a little blurb on the back that says, a beautiful Russian doll of a story. It's House of Leaves meets The Haunting of Hill House in all the best possible ways. And so it just makes me really excited to read this eventually. And then this past weekend, I went to Raleigh, North Carolina for a concert, which was super fun. And I stopped in this bookstore the next day. It's called The News Agents, and it was so cool. It's a bookstore, they have comics, it's also a coffee shop, I think. And then they have just like pretty much every kind of physical media. They have CDs, vinyls. I don't know if they have cassette tapes, I didn't look. But they have DVDs and VHS tapes. So it's a very cool store, but I did stop to get a few things in there. So like I said, I really like horror. So I'm a big Stephen King fan. I do like a lot of his books. I have not read probably even half of them. I've really only read a handful, but I have liked most of what I've read. So I got a few Stephen King books. The first one I got is Needful Things. This one also takes place in Castle Rock, which is where The Body takes place. The Body was adapted into the movie Stand By Me, which is my favorite movie of all time. So just seeing that this takes place in Castle Rock, I had to pick it up. I also love like these compact, smaller books. You can just fit in like your purse. So I'm excited to read this one. And then the other Stephen King one I got is The Life of Chuck. I watched this movie when it was streaming on Hulu like a couple months ago, and I hadn't read it before, but I absolutely loved the movie. I think it was Mike Flanagan. He's the one who did like The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor. I absolutely love The Haunting of Hill House. That's like one of my favorite shows ever. I rewatch it every fall. And then I actually just recently read, or not recently, but last fall, I read The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. But yeah, moral of the story, I love Mike Flanagan, loved the movie, so I wanted to pick up the book. But I was just looking through this and I didn't realize they have him dancing in the corner. I don't know if I'll be able to do it to like show, but so if you like flip through it, it looks like he's dancing. I don't think that showed it very well. Yeah, so I'm excited to read this, even though I do know like how it ends. Or I don't know, maybe the book is different than the movie, but still excited, and I didn't know that it had like the pictures in it, so that's cool. Okay, the last thing I'll show you are these 2 magazines that I got at the newsagents. I love Star Wars, if you couldn't tell by my shirt. I found these 2 magazines and I'm really excited to read them, so. I hope you enjoyed listening to me yap about my recent reads and the new books that I just got. Talking about books is one of my favorite things. So thank you so much for watching. And I would say like and subscribe, but I have a track record of going anywhere from 4 to 10 years between posting videos. So I guess I'll see you whenever the next one may be.